All right, let's move on to the last segment here. So finances. So we know about promissory notes now. A lot of
all
people,
over the news right now.
Yes. Have you seen issues with that in your office? And let's touch on it exactly what a promissory note is. And in case somebody's listening, they don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, a promissory note is a promise to repay money that is lent to a person. So they're usually not too long or detailed. It's, I accept that I've borrowed this amount of money. I'm going to pay this person back by this date. There might be an interest rate. There might be payment specified. But it's essentially a loan document between individuals. A promissory note is typically not secured. Otherwise, it would become a mortgage or something to that effect. So it's just a debt floating around in the universe. A lot of the time in real estate, where I think they're used, but we aren't involved, is people are borrowing for down payments. And the reason we would never ourselves be involved in that, and this is something that people don't quite always understand, is that if you have an institutional mortgage, so not a private mortgage, like a lender, credit union, a big institution with a banking number, your lawyer has obligations to your lender as part of your mortgage contract. And one of those obligations is that if your lawyer knows anything that your lender doesn't, that is material to your lender's position, your lawyer has to disclose it. So if someone came to me and they had put on their mortgage application, the deposit was fully from my own funds, and that was part of their debt to income ratio, and it was all part of the approval process. And then they say, oh, actually, I borrowed it at 25% interest, and I have to pay it back in 2 months, and I don't have the money. That's material to the lender. So lawyers can't, we can't do both those things because they don't go together.
Right.
So I don't know what happens out there with promissory notes.
Right. And so that probably just takes place after the fact.
I don't know what, I mean, we see promissory notes in other contexts where people are just lending money because they want to, and they want a lawyer to draft a contract, and it doesn't have to do with a pending real estate sale.
Right. So a lot of times it's not even on title. It's just a promise.
No,
it's just a piece of paper.
There's so little security.
Right.
And a lot of people are doing it in a measure of good faith because they're friends or their family or something like that. And they don't know the debt load of this person. And they don't know, anyone's going to try and discourage you from lending a large amount of money under a promissory note. Because if something happens and that person, for instance, declares bankruptcy, you're in line behind we don't know who, and you don't have any security. So you're probably near the bottom of the pile. And if they run out of money paying everybody out, there's nothing left for you. Mm-hmm. So, if people, sometimes families will come to us and they say, oh, we want to lend, a family member this money. They're starting a business. We just want to do a promissory note. And we'll say, that's a lot of money. Are you sure you don't want a second mortgage or something like that so they can hold some security? What's
the order? First mortgage, second mortgage.
There are some. So that's
like realtor. What does that order look like?
Secured lenders are always first, or anyone with security is always first. Mm-hmm. There are some sort of super priority liens that can mess with the order. One of them is the CRA, unsurprisingly. And then also property tax potentially and water arrears.
Hold on, before first?
They can butt in front depending on the circumstances.
Really?
And even some things like construction liens can potentially mess with order depending on how the finance was done, if it was a construction loan or not, if the construction predated the mortgage. It gets really technical. Mm-hmm. But 95% of the time, the order is first mortgage, second mortgage, lines of credit, security interests, everybody else.
Okay. And then what about, what am I thinking of here now? Child support.
So they may have what's called a writ. So we see sometimes we have to do writ searches when we sell homes, and that is a search of the person's name in the jurisdiction of the home. So if someone has an order for child support and it's gone to the point where it has a writ, it's not technically lien on the house, but we can't deal with their property without paying it out. So it's not registered, so you don't see it on the house itself, but you see it on their name. So if I sell a house and the person has a first mortgage and they have a valid writ, so it is really them.
What's a writ?
It's when someone gets a judgment and then they register it with the sheriff.
But what is it?
WRIT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it stand for something or is it?
No, that's just what it is.
Oh, so I can look it up in a dictionary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a writ of execution, I think is the full thing.
Yeah.
So we do writ searches every time we sell a house and when we put a mortgage on a house, because lenders want to know that the person doesn't have a debt that is secured by a writ. So it's a debt against your name. So if you're going to deal with any property in the jurisdiction that has a writ, you can't refinance, you can't sell without dealing with that writ.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so child support is one that we see commonly in writs, and sometimes it's not our client. So we'll do a search of someone with a really common last name, and if any two names are in common, so let's say our client has like a middle name, a first name, and a last name, and their middle name and last name match someone with a writ. We have to pull it and we have to make sure it's not them. If it's under a certain amount, we can just get them to sign something saying, hey, that's not me. We do go through previous addresses and things like that and make sure there's nothing in common. But if it's over a certain amount, then you have to write to the lawyer who registered it, get it to them, send them your client's ID, get them to check their files and make sure it's really not the same person.
I actually had to sign something like that as well, too, when I first got into it, because there was a pastor and his name was Gary Marlin Hibbert. So his middle name is my brother's name. And so every time I went in, when we were purchasing properties, I always had to sign to say that this is not me.
Yeah, we have some clients that, their last name's Smith and they've got 6 of them. And we're like, is this you? Is this you? Is this you? And it's usually not.
And it was tough too, because he was also, it was like he was involved, or at least he got sued for real estate investing fraud. I'm like, my
God. It kind of looks bad.
Yeah. So that, and I remember too, when we were starting Smart Home Choice, I had a few people call me. I'm like, hey, is this you? And I'm like, hey, now it's another black guy. It's not, it doesn't even look like me.
No, you could probably Google him. It's not me.
Yeah.
He's probably an online presence. Which is helpful.
I was like,
But yeah, it does come up. And sometimes it's legitimate. Like someone did owe a debt and they hadn't satisfied it. And then when we sell the house, we have to pay it out. Or we refinance the house and we have to pay it out.
Right. And I do believe also too, I should clear this up. He has been found innocent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it took a few years.
So then the writ would be withdrawn.
Right.
And then that's all perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, and the big thing too, so if a lawyer sells a house subject to writs, the owner had writs, and they don't deal with them, that house becomes subject to the writs on title. So it will have all these cautions about subject to writs, if any, of blah, 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 the previous owner. Big mistake if the lawyer does that. They should not be doing that because that is a marketability of title issue now.
Okay.
So lawyers have to be really careful about writs, make sure we get rid of them so that we can sell the house with clean title, because otherwise they will attach on.
All right. Vendor take back mortgages. That's a big one right now. And especially in the world that we're in, right, Q? How does that work? Because that obviously has to get registered on title as well.
Yes.
How do you play with that? And
so as long as everybody knows about it and is cool with it, it's great. So sometimes, for instance, they'll have a first mortgage that's not fully making up what they need, and they'll ask for a vendor take back in second position. Let's say they'd need like another $50,000. Their first lender, for whatever reason, isn't willing to advance it.
Hold on. And then let's explain what that is as well, too. Because sometimes there's people that are listening like, what are you guys talking about? VTB, vendor take back? What do you mean vendor take back?
Yeah. So vendor take back mortgage is essentially where the vendor is lending you money, but really you're just not paying the full price for the house at the time of closing. And then you owe them a debt. So on the statement of adjustments, which is the account the seller's lawyer prepares to show how much is owing on the day of closing, if there is a vendor take back, they will show credit to purchaser for the amount of the vendor take back. So then we pay them less when we close the house. Then that vendor take back loan gets registered as a mortgage on the house. If there's a first lender involved, and this is a second mortgage, the first lender has to approve the vendor take back prior to anything going through. And if the first lender is okay with it, then the lawyer and everybody else is okay with it, and we just register both on the day of closing. If the vendor take back is a first mortgage, that's absolutely fine. No one has to approve it besides the buyer and the seller.
Right. Now, are they okay with it? Like the 5 major banks, or do they usually frown upon a VTB?
They don't love seconds on a new purchase.
Right. So VTB seconds, right.
It's a second. So they don't like any seconds if where possible. Yeah. But we have seen them approved in certain circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if that's something that is crucial to your deal, you just have to get it approved and make sure it's gonna actually go through. You can't have a secret VTB. It just won't work functionally.
Right. Okay. Any other financing questions that you got, Q, or that you've seen come up, Allison?
No real questions. Yeah, I think things are, this market, as Allison said, they're always a month or two behind because of when their closings are. So I don't foresee any appraisal issues or any issues at this point in time. I think the only people in trouble are the ones who bought within maybe the last 2 years or so, right? If people have equity in their property, they can still sort of use their home to carry them through these times. But that's what I'm seeing. People that have bought recently maybe got in over their heads the day they purchased because rates were low, and now they're feeling it. So that's all I'm really seeing on our end right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing those fixed rate mortgages. The numbers are looking prettier than they did a little while ago.
Yeah, what are you seeing them coming in at now? Like in the low fives? Any in the fours?
4.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
I was very excited. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, no one knows what's going to happen with the fixed rates tied to the bond market. It's all sort of beyond me. And then the variable rate, we don't know what the Bank of Canada is going to do next. But it was nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. And it was from like one of the 5 major banks?
I forget who it was from.
Yeah.
It might have been a credit union, but it started with a 4.
Yeah, that's nice to see.
Like,
those first timers, if you're in the insured product space right now, right, putting 6-7% down, you can get those 4s.
Right.
Time to jump off the cliff.
Right.
Yeah, the insured mortgages, they do tend to get good rates, and then they also, sometimes are not as subject to appraisals. So that's an interesting thing too.
Yeah, a little desktop, quick desktop appraisal.
It must have shocked you as well too when those rates went up. And you're seeing your clients come in, and you're looking at the mortgage amount.
Oh my gosh,
like
I know.
5,000, 6,000, 7,000. I'm like,
yeah,
that is crazy.
Yeah, people who had to refinance when it was, really super high. You felt bad, and it's a big shock to the system for sure.
Right.
I mean, I know everybody who got those good rates. Hopefully they viewed it as a nice vacation from reality, and we're going to enjoy the next 5 years and pay off a whole bunch of our principal, and probably never see that again.
Yeah. But a lot of those mortgages are coming up, and some of those payments have not changed as well
the
too.
Fixed rate people with the 1.9 are gonna feel
all of a sudden they're like in a 5 or best case scenario maybe a high 4. Still, that's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
We are seeing, unfortunately, some amortization extensions, but people need to do what they need to do to be able to afford everything else. So if that makes sense, then that makes sense.
And you're seeing some amortizations longer than the 30-year.
No, I haven't seen anything.
You haven't seen anything?
30.
No? Okay.
No.
But they're out there with the certain lenders that didn't change the payments.
Yes.
You're seeing 60, 70, 80 years amortization.
Yeah, the variable rate mortgages that haven't hit their trigger rate or still have enough security that they are still collecting the old payments. They're amortized over crazy amounts, but we don't know about it.
Yeah. Don't worry, babes. We're going to have this thing paid off in like 75 years.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you don't want one of those.
Yeah, awesome. All right, listen, Allison, thank you so much for dropping in and sharing your insights and your knowledge and what you're seeing in the marketplace. I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I think things are sort of, to be honest, for the most part, things seem pretty stable on the legal end of actually closing the deals. We're not seeing any big ripples like we did, 2016, 17, where things really were collapsing and not closing properly. And then when values and prices went down rapidly sort of at the end of the big recent boom, we saw a lot of instability in the ability to close deals. But now, I mean, most deals are closing the way they should. It's nice. Everybody's happy. They get money, they get keys, and it's good.
Awesome. If anybody wants to use your services, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Any way they like best. So they can reach us by phone at 905-666-9200 or by email at info@mcmurter.com.
Awesome. Q, thanks for popping in.
Always great to be here. Thanks for spending the time with us, Allison.
All right, cool. We'll do this again.
All right, sounds good.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care.